The sterling silver fork trembled in Marcus. Wellington's weathered hand as he sat in the corner booth of Bella's diner, the same booth he'd occupied every Friday evening for the past 3 years. Outside, snow fell softly on the Chicago streets. Families hurried past the frosted windows with shopping bags and laughter, and somewhere in the distance, church bells announced the arrival of Christmas Eve. Inside, Marcus was utterly devastatingly alone. At 72 years old, with a net worth that could buy every building on this block twice over, Marcus had everything money could purchase and nothing that mattered. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 50 years building an empire, sacrificing friendships, love, and family on the altar of success. His ex-wife had remarried, a humble teacher, and seemed genuinely happy in her Facebook photos. His daughter hadn't spoken to him in 8 years, not since he'd missed her wedding to close a deal in Singapore. His son sent obligatory text messages on birthdays, nothing more. The diner was nearly empty, just how Marcus preferred it. He came here instead of the 5-star restaurants his colleagues frequented because nobody knew him here. Nobody wanted anything from him, and the meatloaf reminded him of his mother's cooking from a lifetime ago, when he was just a poor kid, from the South Side with dreams, too big for his circumstances. "More coffee, Mr. Wellington?" Sarah, the waitress, asked gently. She was one of the few people who knew his name, though he'd never told her. She'd seen it on a credit card once and had been kind enough to remember. "Please," he murmured, not meeting her eyes. Eye contact invited conversation, and conversation led to questions about family, about plans for the holidays, about all the painful absences in his life. As Sarah poured, the diner's bell chimed. A young woman entered, snowflakes melting in her dark hair, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 7. They were underdressed for the weather. The woman's coat thin and worn, the child's jacket a size too small, revealing bony wrists, but the little girl's eyes sparkled with an enthusiasm that seemed to light up the dreary evening. They slid into a booth across the aisle from Marcus, and he couldn't help but notice how carefully the woman studied the menu, her lips moving slightly as she calculated. The little girl swung her legs beneath the table, humming a Christmas carol slightly off-key. "Mama, can I have the pancakes with the smiley face?" the child asked, her voice bright with hope. The woman's smile faltered for just a moment. "How about we share the grilled cheese, sweetie? And maybe some fries?" "Okay." The girl agreed without complaint, and something in Marcus's chest tightened. He remembered being that age, remembered his own mother making similar calculations, stretching every dollar until it screamed. He tried to focus on his meatloaf, but his attention kept drifting to the pair. The woman's hands shook slightly as she counted crumpled bills from her purse. The little girl had pulled out a broken crayon from her pocket and was drawing on a paper napkin, her tongue poking out in concentration. Marcus knew he should mind his own business. He'd learned long ago that sentiment was a luxury successful people couldn't afford. Yet something about this scene, about this night, about the crushing weight of his own loneliness, made him feel raw and exposed. When Sarah brought their shared grilled cheese, the little girl folded her hands and whispered a grace that included thanks for Mama's love and warm food and baby Jesus' birthday tomorrow. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a stinging behind his eyes that might have been tears if he still remembered how to cry. The woman and child ate slowly, savoring every bite, talking about small joys, Christmas morning, a second-hand doll the girl would receive, a new library book they'd check out. Their happiness seemed impossible given their obvious circumstances, almost offensive in its authenticity. Marcus had just signaled for his check when he noticed the little girl sliding out of her booth. She clutched the napkin she'd been drawing on and walked directly toward him with the fearless confidence only children possess. "Excuse me, mister," she said, standing beside his table. Marcus looked down at her, startled. Up close, he could see that her clothes were clean but carefully mended. Her shoes held together with what looked like superglue, but her smile was radiant, gap-toothed, and genuine. "Yes?" he managed. She held out the napkin. "I made this for you." "You look sad, and my mama says when people are sad, we should be kind, because we don't know what they're carrying in their hearts." Marcus took the napkin with trembling fingers. On it, drawn in crayon with a child's earnest imperfection, was a picture of a man sitting at a table, Above him, in wobbly letters, she had written, "You are not alone. God loves you. Merry Christmas." The words hit him like a physical blow. This child, who had so little, who was sharing a single sandwich with her mother on Christmas Eve, had noticed his pain and sought to ease it. She had given him something no amount of money could buy. Genuine human compassion. Marcus's voice cracked. "Thank you. This is the most beautiful gift I've received in years." The girl beamed. "You're welcome. What's your name?" "Marcus," he said, and realized it was the first time in months someone had asked. "I'm Emma, that's my mama. Rosa. We're going to have Christmas tomorrow, even though Mama lost her job at the factory. But she says we're rich in love, and that's what matters most." Something broke open inside Marcus's carefully constructed walls. "Emma, would you and your mother like to join me? I have far too much food here, and it seems wrong to celebrate anything alone." Emma's face lit up, and she ran back to whisper to her mother. Rosa's expression cycled through surprise, hesitation, and then gentle acceptance. They moved to Marcus's booth, and for the first time in years, he shared a meal with people who wanted nothing from him except companionship. Over pie and coffee, Rosa told him about her job loss, her determination to find work after the holidays, her dreams for Emma's education. Marcus listened, really listened. And in Rosa's struggles, he saw his own mother's sacrifices, the ones he'd taken for granted in his ruthless climb to the top. "What do you do, Marcus?" Rosa asked politely. "I own some companies," he said vaguely. "Manufacturing, mostly." "What kind of work are you looking for?" As Rosa described her skills, Marcus recognized that she'd be perfect for a supervisory position at one of his factories, one that had been open for months. But instead of immediately offering it, he found himself asking about Emma's schooling, Rosa's favorite books, what made them laugh. When the evening ended, Marcus had their phone number written on another napkin and a promise to call about a job interview. But more than that, he had something he'd forgotten existed: hope. He paid for their meal, adding a tip that would cover Sarah's rent for a month. As Emma and Rosa prepared to leave, Emma hugged him tightly. "See?" she whispered. "You're not alone anymore." Walking back to his penthouse that night, Marcus kept the napkin carefully folded in his breast pocket, close to his heart. He pulled out his phone and did something he hadn't done in 8 years. He called his daughter. "Dad?" Her voice was shocked, suspicious. "Merry Christmas, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm calling to say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I missed, for choosing money over family, for being absent when you needed me most. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I love you, and I've been a fool." There was a long silence, then a sound that might have been a sob. "Dad, I've waited so long to hear you say that." They talked for 2 hours, making tentative plans for a belated Christmas dinner, beginning the slow work of rebuilding what Marcus had torn down. When he finally hung up, Marcus looked out at the glittering Chicago skyline, at all the buildings his money had helped create, and realized that none of them meant anything compared to the connections he'd severed. A little girl's napkin had reminded him of a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest currency isn't money or power, but kindness, compassion, and the courage to show up for each other, especially when it's hardest. Rosa got the job plus a scholarship fund for Emma's education. Marcus became a regular fixture in their lives, an honorary grandfather who'd been given a second chance at family. And every Christmas Eve, the three of them returned to Bella's diner, where Marcus kept Emma's original napkin framed on the table, a reminder that sometimes salvation comes in the smallest packages, delivered by the purest hearts exactly when we need it most.